Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Econobox Garage. In this episode, we're continuing with the Bugeye build with more priming and sanding and body filler, but I am getting closer to getting the finished paint on the car. Thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this week's video. Well, I've got the seats out. So before I put the mask off the interior, I'm just going to get a couple of coats of high build primer on the brackets for the roof frame. So that way I can get those, they'll be ready to paint the body color, but I can just mask it all off. I think that'll be the easiest way to do it. Then I can just mask off everything else and make sure nothing in here gets too much overspray. So first off, I'm going to do a bit of cleaning, and that way whatever masking I'm doing will be able to stick better. And as I said, first I'm going to paint the little brackets here and here. So before I hop in the back to put the brackets back on and to clean it up in there, I just want to make sure that the car doesn't flip up. So I've just put my old workmate and a block of wood under here just to support the back of the car. More of a precaution than anything else. I'm sure it wouldn't do that, but I don't want to take any chances. So that's what's next. I'll get back in here with the vacuum cleaner, vacuum out as much as I can, put some masking over the bigger holes, put those brackets in, and I may even run the wiring harness while I'm back there. So now that I've got the back end of the car braced up, just in case, you can see I've got it's a little dusty back here. There's one of the brackets that needs to be replaced. You notice just over by this hole here, there's a string coming out, and that's what I use to pull the old harness out. So it goes in that hole there, up over the wheel arch, and then it comes out down at this one here. So when I go to put the new harness in, I'll figure out the best way to pull it through. I'll probably pull it through from the back, over the top and out that hole. And I'll get that in there while I'm back cleaning up. So it's really dusty back in here. I've got to get the vacuum cleaner out. I can mask up the gas tank hole and the tail light holes. And just generally do a cleanup before we get to putting any further paint on. So here we have everything ready for a couple of additional coats of high build primer. I've got it masked off. I've gone over the whole thing with this low VOC surface cleaner. Then went over it with a microfiber cloth. And then once that was done, I went over it with a tack cloth. So now it's pretty much ready for some more high build. Now it's been sanded with 320 grit all over. I'll put the next couple of coats of high build on and go over that with at least 400, and from there I'll go to the sealer and then the finish coat. And then once I have the main tub done to where I want it, I'll get to work on the bonnet. And as I mentioned earlier, the underside's already painted, so I've just got to get it set up, mask off everything, and then get that painted as well. So it's pretty much ready to go other than the masking. I've got a little bit of it done, as you can see up here. I just have to get the headlight holes masked off and then the grill opening as well. Now I've got 2 coats of high build on here now, or 2 new coats. I do wear a respirator, and I've got my ceiling fan going full speed. I have an old box fan blowing out of the garage, and I have one of the windows open to help get some air circulating, and it's come out pretty good so far. But I'm going to let that sit overnight, and we'll get back to it tomorrow and get some sanding on it. There was a couple of spills off the paint can, but those will sand out. All in all, yeah, it's looking pretty good. So one of the things I almost forgot about is the bezel, or the plinth for the license plate light. It was sitting in a box, and I thought, going through some stuff, came across it, and I realized that has to be painted the body color as well. And it was dark blue, like the card had been painted at one spot. So I've cleaned it all up with 80 grit. I'll sand it down some more with some 180. I did the inside, cleaned it out a bit, and put on some of that rust converter. So I'll sand this down a bit further, get some primer on it, so that when I do put the finish coats on, I can paint this at the same time. So here's the plinth for the license plate light, all sanded down, first with 80 grit to get the old paint off, and then with 180, and then I also took some 300 to it, or 320, and a couple of coats of high build primer on that. I'll give it another sand, see where we're at, and we'll either give it another coat of primer, or just leave it and get it ready to paint when I paint the rest of the car. I just thought I'd share with you my little setup for painting small parts. It's basically just a cardboard box. I've used a piece of old wire coat hanger through the top. I can hang the parts inside. And the nice thing about doing it this way is I can turn the parts without touching them. So I can get all the way around it. And then once I'm satisfied with that, I just take another piece of wire and carefully, that's kind of a bit of a challenge to do with one hand, but just carefully pick it off that hook. And I can just hang it from a spot along the upper shelf there. So that way it frees up my little paint booth to paint whatever part is next. Well, I've started to do a cleanup for the next stage on the car. I have a second and third coat of high build primer on. I've pulled all the old masking off. I'll sand, clean up, and then remask. And I thought, such a nice day, I'll just stick the back end of the car out of the garage and do the sanding outside. And then once I've got all the sanding done on the tub and the bonnet, I've got some poly here. I'm going to rig up like a very rudimentary paint booth. So for now I'm just going to get to sanding the back of the car, and when it's all done, I'm actually going to flip the car around in the garage so I can keep this end, the front end of the car, as close to the garage door as possible, and that'll give me more room to work around the back end of it when I actually get around to painting. So while working on sanding the car down, I noticed that along the sill here there was a few spots I'd missed as far as cleaning up after some angle grinder work. Regardless, it needed to be patched, so a little bit of Bondo work along there. And also over on the bonnet, had a similar situation in this area. So this has already been filled. Camera's having a hard time focusing on that flat gray. Anyway, so this has been filled and sanded, and a coat of primer on it. So I'll get a second coat or third on this, and then I'll just get some paint on that other bit. I'm glad I found these little spots before I got to the sealer and paint. So I'm happy with how that one's turned out. And then on the other end of the car, there's a couple of spots on this fender here, and then down on the sill by the driver's door. So I'm happy where all those are now. So I'm going to flip the car around so that the back end is closer to the middle of the garage, and makes it easier to move around because I can have it almost right up to the garage door when I go to paint it. The main tub is just about ready to go, and I need to put another couple of coats of high build on the bonnet. And you can see I've started masking that off. So I'm going to get this set up on some kind of stand so I can work on it, get the whole underside masked off, and work from there. So first off, I'm going to get the car flipped around. Well, there we go. I've got the bonnet set up on a couple of stands, so it's in approximately the same orientation as the rest of the car. I've got the car flipped around. As I mentioned, this way I can put it just very close to the garage door because I don't need to paint up there. I only have to be able to get down to the sills here on both sides. I'm going to give the bonnet another coat or two of the Bugeye Build primer on. Well, I have the bonnet ready for another coat of primer. I just got to mask off underneath, so I'll get that done. And in the meantime, I'm just going to throw some poly over the rest of the car. A neighbor had almost a full box of this plastic auto body masking film that he was kind enough to give me, so I'm going to put that to good use, not only masking the car up, but I'll use it to drape the sides of the garage when I set up for painting. So let's get that car covered, and then I'll get the bonnet masked off and some more paint on there. That's the bonnet done with some more Bugeye Build primer. I'm really happy with how that's turned out, so I'm going to sand that now with either 400 or 600 grit, give it a good clean, and remask it, and then that'll be ready for sealer. But before I do the sealer, I'm going to get the garage set up with some poly down the sides, and you can see I just put some 1x2 up along the bottom of the trusses there, all along here, and I've done the same on this side here, and that goes all the way up to this truss right here. So what I will do is I'll drape the plastic down from that and then across here, and I'll end up with a space that's about 22 feet long and 10 feet wide. I'm still trying to figure out some kind of a bracket or stand for these doors so I can paint them at the same time. If you have any suggestions, I'd really appreciate that. Either leave them in the comments below or drop me an email at econoboxgarage@gmail.com. And I've got that email address in the description below. That's it for this week. If you enjoyed the video, please share it with your friends. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Hit that little bell icon so you'll get notified when the next video comes out. My name is Ian. This is the Econobox Garage. We'll see you next time.